You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to thank everybody for coming back. This is episode 321 of the Snob OS show. I'm gonna do something a little bit different and kind of do a highlight of what's going on in this show. For the lowdown, we're going to talk about Mac and watch tariffs and when they're going to take effect. Talk about UK users possibly getting a watered down version of iOS 26. Apple looks like it's acquiring its way through the AI race. Apple AI support chatbots are in the works. What do you think? Is Apple going to keep going, or what is Apple doing with AI? In second string, subscription services will continue to be super hard to cancel thanks to the FTC. For the culture, Laryn Hill is late again, but it's not her fault this time. You'll find out the details. And then to hook up, I'll show you a way to drastically increase your Apple Watch battery life. So that and more on this week's show. We're going to get right into it. We always want to say thank you to all those who have been listening thus far. A couple ways you can join us is if you go to snoboscast.com. That's where you get all information about the show. And if you want to become a Patreon supporter, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast to get all the details. And if you do, got a little bit of extra for you. So definitely join our Patreon community. You know, we'll give you a little thank you, give you some extra bonuses. So having said all that, we're going to get right into the show. We're going to start with the lowdown. Like I mentioned, it looks like, well, as of today, as of right now, it seems like Macs and Apple Watches will be the first Apple products to get hit by Trump's tariffs starting on August 1st. Apple products, specifically Mac and Apple Watches, manufactured in Thailand, will be subject to the 36% tariff under Trump's new reciprocal. My mind did not get that.
Blake.
My mind was saying something else instead of reciprocal. Trump's new reciprocal tariffs policy targeting Thai-made imports, significantly increasing costs for Apple. So I'm going to get your opinion. What do you think about Trump's proposed tariffs that are going into effect in August? Is this going to be another taco event, or is Trump going to finally go through with at least one of these tariffs? And then how does that affect Apple if he does?
And so that was the thing. That was the first thing I was going to say. Is this a taco? You never can tell. It's unfortunate that we kind of have to live in this limbo. It's like, I won't believe it until I see it. And even if he does go through with it, is he going to rescind it after 2 weeks, a month? Or whatever, because it's all so loosey-goosey because we don't honestly have a functioning government here in the United States of America. So I don't know if he does go through with it, which he might, because they have been losing really badly over all the things. It was supposed to be, 90 deals in 90 days. And now he's writing these weird letters to I think, did he write one to Taiwan, or was it to China? Or it could have been both. And, there are people who are marking it up with all the bad language and, I mean, it was like a fifth grader could have written a better, letter. So it's one of those things where I think he's trying to get a win. And maybe by keeping this, maybe he'll be like, yes, I have an actual win, but it's not really a win because they don't understand how tariffs work. And the cost of the tariff is going to be put on the consumer. The other country doesn't pay for the tariff. The person, the recipient, the consumer of the product, of the goods and services, they pay the tariff. The country doesn't pay it. Never has. That's not how this whole thing works. But again, like I said, we don't really have functioning government. So that's where we are. So if this does go through, it's going to go and at a terrible time, because if this happens in August, September is usually big Apple product release time, especially for the iPhone. So normally what you pay $10.99 for a pro phone, that has 256 gigs. Who knows? This thing may crack 2000 now if these tariffs stay into place. So um I think for me, I'm normally at every other cycle unless it's something that I really want. But what I think we're going to see is people are already tightening their belts. We're going to talk about Essence a little bit later. We've seen, ripple effects of that. Microsoft just announced they're going to do another 9,000 in layoffs. The federal government, the Supreme Court just signed off for this administration to cut a lot of federal workers. And I say all this to say is people are already very stingy with what they spend their money on. And unfortunately for Apple, if they don't have something to really deliver that really is going to compel people to part with their money, first of all, if these tariffs hold up, it's going to be even more expensive. Second, if you don't have anything that makes me really want to buy it other than, oh, I'm an Apple person and I normally buy it, I think it's going to start to change the minds of some people. And it's like, yeah, this isn't worth it. Sorry. Not going
So
to
the
pay for it.
so the problem with tariffs, in my opinion, well, I mean, I say the problem with tariffs. The problem with leveraging or levying, not leveraging, levying tariffs, increasing tariffs, only works if America also exports something that people in other countries need. That way you can say, oh, okay, well, we don't think, I think the whole reason behind Trump doing these tariffs is because he's believed for years that these other countries are not paying their fair share to the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
Americans in America spend all this money on all these products, and we don't have nothing to show for it outside of stuff, right? Versus the other countries have a bunch of money, America's money, right? And then you could say, well, if you also have something to export, we can be like, we're going to change our tariffs. And then the other countries will be like, oh, wait a minute. We need that thing that America makes. Let's come to the table and see if we can come up with a deal. That's how you get a deal done. You need leverage. You need something that the other person needs. Right. And then you come to a compromise.
That's why they call it a deal, a trade, an exchange of things.
All we're exporting is money. That's it. Yeah. Meanwhile, we import everything that we need. Ain't too much of anything made in America anymore for reasons, right? So I think that is the problem with Trump and his tariff talk. We need leverage in order to do this game that he's doing.
And we don't have that leverage.
So fast forward to Apple, like you mentioned, this 36% tariff on Macs and Apple Watches to start. Let's just say it goes into effect. Apple or whomever has to pay this large tariff to get these products into the country. Or I'm saying it backwards, but Apple has to deal with these tariffs. And like you mentioned, they're going to pass that. Apple's a company. They're not going to just eat that cost. No. They're going to pass it on to customers. Customers are going to find their products more expensive. And we can point the finger directly back to Trump and his tariff talks, when before it was all economics, and you got to understand supply and demand. And we ain't got to figure out that. No, you raised the tariffs. Now stuff costs more expensive. It's your fault. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, we for this first half of the year, we've been seeing all the things that this administration is doing, but nobody's really felt it yet. And the fact that it may be Apple, a big company, which again, big corporations and rich people run this country, it'll be interesting to see how these companies attack this outside of or in addition to just raising rates on the cost of goods for everybody, because we ain't gonna let it fly. We may
Yeah,
not.
and you saw what happened when even the threat or the talk of Amazon posting, you know, what the tariff cost is. They do itemize. Your item cost $100. The tariff is $20. The tax is $30 or whatever, however those numbers work out. You saw how it just really sent this administration into a tailspin, and they started threatening, and it was like, and then Amazon was like, wait, what? We didn't say we were going to do that. We didn't agree to that. And it's the thing of this administration, they want all the money for themselves, and they want the businesses to eat the difference when
Mhm.
they wouldn't even be willing to eat the difference. So like I said, it's a hot mess. And it's
Yeah.
all going to be passed over to the consumer.
Right.
And if companies start losing money because people aren't going to pay it, then they're going to start laying off people, cutting back on products. And it's just a vicious cycle of doom.
Mhm.
And, it's like,
Yep.
this is where we at.
Yep. All right. So enough of that. We're moving on to something else. The UK puffed out his chest and has been trying to get Apple to bend to all of these new demands based on
Mhm.
privacy and security, based on whatever the government is doing over in the UK. They want Apple to do all these things. And Apple has conceded on a lot of things.
Mhm.
Specifically, the main popular thing was the UK forced Apple to switch from Lightning to USB-C. That
Mhm.
was one of the big things. Another big one was the EU forced Apple to open up its app store or open up its phone to third-party app stores. And then the next one was they wanted Apple to create this back door to where the UK government at any time could go through iCloud, go through Apple,
Insane.
and get data or do what they need to do with their country's population's devices. So I think outside of that, Apple was like, all right,
Enough.
enough. So um Apple, I don't know, I'm assuming this was in response to all this stuff, but according to a report, Apple's vice president of legal, Kyle Ander, stated, "We've already had to make the decision to delay the release of products and features we announced this month for our EU customers." So it sounds like in response to all of the new restrictions that UK put on Apple, Apple has decided we can't keep up. We're just going to have to delay some of these features. We don't know what those features are, but I wanted to get your opinion. Is this tactic going to make UK bend, or are they just going to plow forward and the UK customers, UK Apple users, will just have to take the L?
I think the UK Apple users are going to be the ones that really put a stop to this. I
Okay.
mean, I think it's actually smart for them to have an EU version because the EU are the only people who are, coming up with these. I mean, allowing a government to have backdoor access to personal data of its citizens. That
Through another
is
company, through a third company. It ain't through the government. Now, it'd be one thing if the UK was spying, well, not spying, let me not say that, was as concerned and use their own tools, but they're using a US company to say, hey, we want to better track our users. So we're going to use your company that's not a UK company to get our citizens, that's the word I was looking for,
This
our
is
citizens'
even
data.
more stupid than I thought it was. I thought the government was trying to directly have access. They're going to use a foreign country's tech to do this. Yeah, if I were Apple, there would be an EU specific iOS.
Hmm.
And this what y'all want? I'm going to give you, honestly, I'd be petty. I completely pare down the phone. I was
Hmm.
like, all these things you want, we can't run our tech and still be able to give you access to all these things. I'd strip them down and give them an EU phone with EU software that only works for them. This is what you want. This is what you get. It may take extra money. It may take extra time. But what it will do is slow down some of these lawsuits, because all of these things that are happening that they meaning Apple are acquiescing to are coming down from lawsuits. So yeah, give them an EU phone, give them EU software, and then have a team that does those updates and those changes, and kind of like wash your hands of it, because
Right. We
it
tried.
it really is it really I mean, we're Apple fans, so obviously we think some of this stuff is insane, but even non-Apple users can look at some of these things that they're trying to do and be like, wait, what? Because I don't think, are they doing this for Google phones? Are they
I
doing
don't
this for
know.
are they
That's a
doing
good
this for
question.
anybody else? Because all I hear about is Apple when it comes to this Digital Markets Act.
Hmm.
I think it may be Apple specific, because I haven't seen any other, what is it, Huawei or any of the other,
Hmm.
you know,
Manufacturers.
Microsoft, all these other manufacturers of phones, Samsung. I haven't seen any of this relate to them. I could be wrong. If I am, definitely let me know. But I've only seen them come after Apple this hard. And to me, it makes it seem like there's some ulterior motives to this. And it's like, how much can we chip away at Apple? But I mean, I would
Yeah.
do it. I'd give them, and I would, like I said, I wouldn't just stick strictly to a EU version of the iOS. I'd give them EU versions of the device, because right now it's just for the phone. But you have App Store on your Macs, you have App Stores on your iPads. So it's kind of like it's eventually going to trickle to everything. So let's just give the EU. They wanted to Brexit. The UK did. They want to separate themselves. So hey, let us help you do that and give you exactly what you want. Now your citizens are going to be pissed
Yeah.
if they have to get this pared down version, or if their data out of the whole Apple ecosystem, they are the only, group, they are the only continent that has these intrusions. So yeah, I
All
think
right.
it's going to come down to the citizens to be like, nah, we good.
All right. All right. We shall see. All right. Next up, Apple acquires its way into the AI race. So we were back and forth about this. We believe we want Apple to build something internally, something that's specific to Apple, and by extension, Apple's end users. We are not too, well, Apple hasn't taken too kindly about, well, let me not say that. Let me rephrase it. Apple is not doing what everybody else is doing. When I mean everybody else, I mean Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic,
Anthropic.
all of these other companies have decided to do something this way with AI. Apple has said, oh, we're going to try to stick this route. The problem with that is Apple's not sticking to this route very well. And as a result, we've had some issues with what Apple promised versus what Apple delivered
Mm-hmm.
via AI. So a lot of people were asking or questioning or posing the question, does Apple buy an Anthropic? Does Apple buy or try to buy an OpenAI or another company to do their AI for them? Not quite, but Apple is not a stranger to acquiring companies. And it is very interesting that one of the companies that they have recently acquired, and I'll just read this specific, Apple has acquired Y Labs, which is concerned with monitoring AI large language models and ultimately preventing hallucinations. It does that through tracking what the company describes on its still active official site as drift and performance degradations. So it sounds like Apple's not right now buying an entire AI company and say, hey, run our AI for us. But what this specifically looks like is Apple's like, all right, if we're going to use somebody else's AI to supplement
Mm-hmm.
Siri, then we're going to put these tools in place to make sure it ain't tripping.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like with this company. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think Apple should do? You think Apple should stay the course and build something in house, or should they partner with or acquire a larger company and let them run AI for them.
It sounds like they're doing build a bot. We're they're like you said, they're not buying a whole completed, type system. They're buying,
Hmm.
oh, we're gonna buy this piece for over here, we're gonna get this piece over here, we're gonna get that piece over here, we're gonna get in there, and we're gonna just mash it all together.
Hmm.
Um, I guess that's an approach, but that comes with its own challenges as well.
Hmm.
And I think what the determining factor is because they can buy these companies. It's not going to put a dent to them. If it works, hey, yay. If it doesn't work, oh, well, we're out of a couple $100 million. That's fine. We're fine. So I really think they are acquiring these different pieces to see if they could build a bear to get what they need as compared to doing it in house. So
Hmm.
there has to be some sort of like um uh budget's not the word I'm thinking of, but there has to be some sort of like analysis to see the pros and cons of continuing on the path to build it ourselves or bringing these different pieces in to make it work, because they've been working on this Apple Intelligence for a couple of years now. And when I say working on it, I mean what they've released. I know they've been working on it before, but it's what they're delivering. And we've seen the challenges, and that's only what we see is like surface level. So God knows what's under the hood of what they've tried and what they
Hmm.
failed. So before they even delivered the first version of Apple Intelligence, they probably tried and failed a bunch of different times. And maybe
Hmm.
they feel at this point is that they've exhausted what they can do and thinking, you know what, maybe let's see what somebody else did
Hmm.
and see if what they have works with what we have and makes it better, or if we just need to kind of completely put out. It's like I've said, this whole thing that they're trying to do is really hard, is really complex. Not necessarily because of the technology on its own, but what Apple does with their data. I always say, it always starts with the data and the way they want to protect it. You can't go into the AI race that we currently have and still want to keep a tight leash on it. Apple can't do what OpenAI does. Apple can't do what ChatGPT does because they scrape the web and the data is just free flowing out there. And Apple tries to lock themselves in. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with them is trying to basically put a round peg in a square hole, and they're trying to beat it in there to make it fit, and it's not fitting. And so now they're back to the drawing board to see how can we make this fit. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Look to them.
Yeah. I think the problem with Apple is, unfortunately, we already have defined loosely what we want AI to do.
Hmm.
In order to do that, it takes a lot of power
Yep.
and it takes a lot of cloud
Yep.
processing. Apple is well, you get the impression that Apple is against running all the AI in the cloud, and they
Hmm.
really wanted to put everything on device for, like Nica
Hmm.
said, is because it's more secure. The data is on the device.
Yeah.
So if the LLM or the AI, whatever you want to call it, runs on the device, then that keeps with Apple's. We ain't gonna touch your data. We don't want to do
Hmm.
whatever. Now, Apple does have some parts that it passes over to cloud compute, but that has been very what's the word, it's not an open hose.
It's very limiting.
Right,
It's
so
very streamlined
right,
what can
so
go over to the cloud compute.
right. So that's where Apple is working with OpenAI right now. But even still, that has its limitations. And I think Apple has to decide if they want to go in the direction that we've already gone with AI and decide they're going to get into that race, or are they going to continue to stick to this? We got to make it safe. We got to keep it on the device, do as little scraping, as little cloud processing as possible. And that's presenting a challenge because we're
Yeah.
already used to what we're used to as
Yeah.
far as AI. And unfortunately, Apple waited too long. So now they got to play catch up and now they got to change their strategy because the stuff that they want to do, we don't really care about that much anymore,
Right.
unfortunately. So,
Right.
all right. Enough of that. Let's move on to the last one. Speaking of Apple and AI, it looks like, according to Mac Rumors, they are working on a Chat GPT style AI support chatbot. The code found by Mac Rumors states that the support assistant uses generative models and that it will provide answers related to certain Apple products and services. Apple warns that generative models can sometimes provide incorrect, misleading, incomplete, offensive, or harmful outputs. Don't we know it?
Mhm.
And that customers should not rely on information from support assistant as a substitute for professional advice. So I wanted to get your take on Apple slowly but surely, like I mentioned before, adopting how we use AI, and they're going to try to adapt it into support with the keynote, with the well, not with keynote, with the important piece that Apple says we're going to use this chatbot in support, but don't trust it. So does it send a mixed message that Apple says use this thing but don't trust it, but it's ours, so trust it, but not really?
So that's, to me, that's not even the mixed message. The mixed message is having a support assistant anyway. Isn't that what you have Homegirl for? Like,
Well,
to
well,
ask
like
it
Well,
stuff?
not like I can't get into my Apple ID. I've been locked out of my password.
Mhm.
Somebody stole my Apple ID. Um, how do I force start my what like stuff that you would actually either have to go to the Apple store
Mhm.
or call Apple support? What this third thing is going to do is
Mhm.
be like the front end. You tell it what's going on. It tries to come up with like Apple support documents to say, hey, look at this, try this. Then I guess if you get disgruntled enough, they'll patch you over to a li- a live person that you can chat with, because with the Apple support app, you can actually live chat with somebody
Mhm.
and work through your issues.
Mhm.
But this is going to be all AI, to where you are typing to this thing and it's searching Apple's support documents and providing answers. If that's enough, then that's enough. If not, then they
Okay.
pass you to somebody else.
Okay, and I'm looking at the article on Mac Rumors, and it says it relies on messages. So this chatting will already use an existing app. That was my
Yeah,
other thing. It was like, it's a separate app. How does this work? So basically, you will be able to use this support assistant with messages, similar to, if you have. I don't know if you've used it, but when I've had issues with my Apple Card, with my Apple Savings, or anything like that, you get the special message
gray.
window
Yeah,
that's
same thing.
gray. It doesn't
Mhm.
look so. I'm assuming that this is going to be a more robust version of that, and that is
Not even
through
more robust,
messages.
just automatic, just AI.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So you're gonna have three options. The way I see it is you have three options. When you
Uh,
need some support and you reach out to Apple directly,
mm-hmm.
probably the first thing you'll be introduced, or not introduced, the third
They'll
thing you'll be
redirect you
presented.
to, is to use is to use a
Right.
chat.
The
Yeah.
first thing you'll be presented to is this AI chatbot, to where you would ask it questions, the same
Mm-hmm.
questions you would go into Google. The
Mm-hmm.
benefit, the perceived benefit is it's coming from Apple. But again, with that note that Apple put in there, is like, hey, don't trust
They
it.
got to put a CYA in there in
Yeah, but
case it
it's
does go a little left.
right. So I'm like, all right, well, just patch me through to the real person that will give me a more professional answer. If you're
Right.
already telling me, don't trust this, though, I'm like, all right, bet I ain't gonna trust it. Give me to the person,
Right.
representative, right? I'm
Yeah.
wondering
Support.
what,
Support.
yeah. I'm wondering what problems Apple think it will be able to resolve without getting somebody human involved.
Maybe they're just hoping that it reduces the traffic of calls.
Maybe, maybe.
But at the same time, I don't know about you, but like when you call and you don't want to do the automated thing, and you
Hmm.
just yell person, person, person,
Hmm.
representative, representative over and over till you get a person. I think if people start to use this thing and they get frustrated, or they aren't getting the responses that they want, because Apple already told y'all, look, we want you to use this because it's ours, but then I don't know, it might be all right, but it might not be. And people are like, I'm not even gonna go through that. I'm just gonna call and talk to a person and bypass this. But there may be enough people that say, I'm gonna use this support assistant, and maybe it'll reduce some of the traffic, or at least slow it down. The pipeline of people trying to get in. They'll try this first. If this doesn't work, then they'll go in to a person. So maybe that's the hope. That's about the only thing I can think of, because nobody is going to solely rely on this, especially if they think that there may be some issues with this.
Mhm. All right, so that's all I had for the lowdown. We're gonna move into second string where we talk tech in general, and I was pretty sad about this, to be honest, when I was reading it. Um, Simply because I've always lamented about how hard it is to cancel subscriptions. You got to go here,
Mhm.
you got to go there, you got to send an email, you got to send a mailed letter with your with your how did they the candle, and they take the
Oh, they
candle,
seal it with the
yeah, with
wax,
the professional seal, and you got to have a, yeah, you got to do all this
a dab
just
of
to cancel,
blood, a little bit
right?
of DNA, something.
Yep, yep, yep. So when Biden and the Democrats were in office and in of the control of our administration, they pushed through this no click to cancel
Mhm.
program, to where, as easy as it is for you to sign up for a subscription, it
Mhm.
would be that easy for you to cancel a subscription. Well,
Mhm.
fast forward to this current administration, the Federal
Nah.
Trade Commission's click to cancel rule was set to take effect next week,
Mm.
and would have
7 days.
required, yep, and would have required everything from your gym membership to Amazon Prime subscription. That is like the main culprit trying to cancel Amazon Prime. Good luck. I went
Pack your
through it.
patience.
Yeah, I went through it. It is not an easy task. To Amazon Prime subscriptions, to let customers cancel their recurring payments as easily as they signed up and through the same method. Given, and this is in the story,
Mhm.
given that the Democrats who ushered the rule across the finish line are no longer at the agency, which
Mhm.
currently consists of three Republican members, including, three, we're just going to skip them. Three Republican members. The future of the rule looks bleak. FTC spokesperson declined to comment during the ruling. So basically, for whatever reason, I don't know who, well, I know who. Amazon and them, the gym membership company, all the
All the
places.
tech people that were up there on the dais when
Right,
he was being sworn in.
right. They will probably have a problem with this, and I think that they got to these FTC members,
Grease the
and
wheels a
now,
little bit.
right, and as a result, now we have no easy click to cancel. And I wanted to read um a quote that I thought was makes no sense. Let me find it
Mhm.
though. Hold on. It's the court. Not this. Is not it. The court referenced those dissents by now Chair Andrew Ferguson. These are the. Uh, let me get it together. All right, hold
Okay.
on.
Tee it up.
The court referenced those dissents by now Chair Andrew Ferguson and Commissioner Melissa Holyoke, both Republicans. In its opinion, Holyoke had questioned the race across the finish line among the Democratic majority that voted for the rule at the time, and called it and I quote, a missed opportunity to make useful amendments to the pre existing negative option rule within the scope of the commission's authority. What?
What the hell does that even mean?
I don't know. What? And that's why I wanted to read it. I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense. But it sounds like, just based on context clues,
uh,
a missed opportunity to make useful amendments. The useful amendment would be to make it
the
easier for
click the
end users to
pass.
click the cancel. So
Click
I
to
don't understand.
cancel.
I'm not understand what she's referring to as in
And
making
they
it
accused
harder.
Kamala of doing the word salad. This is a word salad bar. Jeez.
Yeah. It said, let me read this other one. The Eighth Circuit Court found that the Democratic run agency, skipped
Mhm.
steps to issue the rule, including depriving stakeholders, meaning the companies that didn't want them to do it,
Mm.
a notable opportunity to dissuade the FTC from adopting the rule as proposed. Even though the court said FTC's decision to skip some analysis was certainly not made in bad faith, it found that the companies that didn't want you to do it, have raised enough uncertainty whether their comments would have had some effect if they had not been considered. So basically, what she's saying is, y'all didn't check in with the companies. So since y'all didn't check in with the companies to find out if they could have come up with a better way to do this, the whole thing is null and void. Which again,
Or,
right,
or
right,
if the previous administration wasn't taking their bribes or their lobbyists' money.
Yeah.
Maybe
You,
it could be
you
that, not
yeah.
necessarily them not work with them, but them saying, no, we don't want your money. We want to do this and we're going to do it.
Yep. You can definitely sense that the lobbyists were hard at work on
Yeah.
this one. And it looks like they got through because it's crazy that anybody would say, yeah, no, I don't know. I want it to actually be harder to make it click to cancel. And it's just
Listen,
crazy.
I canceled my LA Fitness membership during the pandemic. And let me tell you, normally people go in, it's like, what, I'll just remove my card
Credit card.
information.
Hmm.
Nope, they don't like to do that. I'll just, close that, no, you can't. You have to literally write a letter and put a stamp on it and mail it. You can't even email it. You have to put it in the mail. And I think they rely on people who has stamps at their house,
Hmm.
who has printers at their house. Even if you got a printer, you got some ink. Does your ink work? And to fill it out, seal it up. You got some envelopes. Who has envelopes at the house?
These
And
young
then you got
kids
to
don't know
mail
how
it.
to. These young kids nowadays don't even know how to format a letter.
Right. Right.
so
And
so.
then you got to drop it in the mailbox and wait.
Mhm,
And the place is in California. So you got to, and it's a P.O. box. So you got to
mhm,
wait for it to get in the mail, go from here on the East Coast, go across the country, sit in a P.O. box until somebody comes and picks it up. And
mhm,
even when they come and pick it up, they got to take it to a processing center. They got to open it. They got to type in all the stuff and they got to cancel it. By this time, you've paid for extra couple months because
mhm.
it hasn't ended. And I think they hope that people don't want to go through the effort. And it's like they'll just give up and we'll still take this $29.99 every month. And you stuck with us suckers.
Yep, it's just sad to see how corporate interests like easily influence our democracy, and it's getting pretty sad. But enough of that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I had for second string. We're gonna move into for this culture, and like I mentioned, it is widely known in our community that if you are going to, or trying to, or thinking about going to a Lauryn Hill concert, you
Don't do
better
it.
well, yeah, don't do it. But if you do decide to do it, you're gonna be waiting. So bring you a little folding chair or
Been there, done
something.
that.
Right.
Got the t-shirt. Never
Make
going
sure
back.
make sure you have some comfortable shoes. Make sure you
Some
got some
snacks.
snacks because you're gonna be waiting, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward to Essence. That happened this just past week or a week or so ago.
Mm.
And a last minute addition, from what I've understood, last minute addition to the lineup at Essence Music Festival was Lauryn Hill. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people who were there were like, oh, we know how this story goes.
Mm.
But it seems like Essence, the event planning company that puts this whole thing on,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that they dropped the ball and even at the beginning,
A lots of areas they dropped the ball
everything.
apparently.
Yeah. In addition to that, not keeping time of the
Not
time,
sticking to the schedule, not sticking to the
not sticking to the
rundown. The
schedule.
rundown has all the stuff.
By the time Lauryn Hill got on stage, it was like 2 in the morning or three. It knows 2 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And again, she's embroiled in all of these copyright, not copyright, but what is
Yeah,
it?
it's copyright.
Yeah, copyright, to where she can't even sing
The
the
song the
songs the
way
way
we
we
know it.
remember them
Mm-mm.
off the album. So on top of
Mm-mm.
her getting on the stage late, on top of her only being able to sing a couple songs and then leaving, by the time she was done, I heard reports of it was like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So of course that goes back to here we go. This is another chapter in the book of Lauryn Hill and her CP time. But it looks like Essence was at fault and they actually went to Instagram because they know that people was going to clown Lauryn Hill for being late, and they had to literally eat it,
Yeah.
because if they didn't, they was literally going to throw that lady under the bus. So
Mm-hmm.
Essence put the statement on IG that says family is family, and around here we protect our own no matter what the people have to say. Why are you mad at the people? Y'all the ones late.
You made these people pay this money, and now
Right.
they're supposed to be sitting in the Superdome at 4:00 in the morning. Are you
All
crazy?
right. Right. Let's
It
be
ain't the
very
people's fault.
right. Let's be very clear. We don't play about Miss Laryn Hill, it reads, not for clicks, not for headlines. She arrived on schedule, stepped on that stage, and delivered the kind of performance only a good legend can. The delay wasn't hers. We'll take that. The moment, one for the books. The legacy, still unmatched. I would have rewritten that a little bit more to say, we're sorry. Laryn Hill wasn't late. It was our fault. Continue
They
to
have
preach it.
they took no accountability or culpability for any of this
Right.
when it was their fault.
They just said the delay,
It
not
wasn't
hers.
hers.
We'll take that. That
Yeah.
sound like me talking to my homeboy and I accidentally messed something up, like he was on the phone with a girl and then I called the girl the wrong name and he looked at me all crazy and I'm like, that's my bad, I'll take that. No, man. It's a little bit more important than that.
Right. You gotta
That's
sell a little bit more because now you're raising some other questions. But yeah, I saw people talking about this, and as much crap as we like to give Laryn about these performances, because I was a victim of her late performances before, and I swore I'd never see her in concert again, and that still holds. That still
Mhm.
remains true. But in this instance, it was not her fault. And it was Essence's fault. And Essence, even though they stepped up to defend her, they didn't apologize to the 80,000 people that paid their money to come to the concert, to fly into New Orleans, who got their hotels, who spent money in the city. They didn't apologize to these people who spent their hard-earned money to come to this. And from what I've seen is it was even less people than it normally is.
Mhm.
Why? Because Essence didn't release the lineup until late.
Mhm.
And when you got Beyonce rolling through with Cowboy
Mhm.
Carter, you
Right.
got Kendrick and SZA
Mhm.
rolling through.
You
You
got
can't be
got
late.
right.
You
You
can't
got
be
you got
late.
Brandy and Monica about to go on tour.
Brandy and Monica. I
These are
think
all
Mary J.
tours.
Blige is on is
Yeah.
on tour. Yeah, people have their money allocated and accounted for, and then you want to show up at the last minute and wonder why ain't nobody coming? Because you didn't give people the opportunity to put you in their budget. And then when people do go, you don't treat them with the basic dignity and respect of saying, "Yeah, we messed up. Our bad. We
Our
truly
sincerest
apologize." Giving a
apologies.
sincere apology.
We're going to work harder to make next year's Essence Festival. If y'all just hang out with us, we promise we're going to learn from these lessons. We took your feedback, we took your criticism, we took it to heart. We're going to learn, we're going to grow, we're going to get better. I promise. They ain't say
Because
none
we're
of that.
learning it. We're still learning. We're still learning and growing. Isn't that what people say when they mess up and they do something illegal and it's like I'm still, or they say something racist or
Mhm.
homophobic or whatever, I'm still listening and learning.
Nope.
Messed up for them
Well,
though.
it'll be interesting to see what Essence next year look like because I heard a lot of like grumblings that it
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
what it used to be. Again, I haven't been in a long time. The last time I went, I think Factory Beverly and Mays was still closing the show, so I can't speak on it, but I've heard that, like you said, my dollars is getting tight and I don't know if Essence going to be in the budget, especially after this.
Yeah.
So, all
Good
right.
luck.
Yeah, all right. All right. Moving on. We're moving on to the hookup. And like I mentioned at the top, if you are trying to squeeze as much Apple Watch battery out of your watch as possible, if you have one of the newer Apple Watches that feature that always on display, it ain't rocket science, the screen is on all the time. As a
Mhm.
result, that's going to reduce the battery life. Now, having said that, you can try a bunch of different things to increase battery life on your Apple Watch, but this one, turning off always on, gave, according to the story that I'm reading, 10 to 12 hours of additional Apple Watch battery. So that's
Hmm.
nothing to sneeze at,
Right.
and you have to decide what's more important at this point. Is the always on display to where I don't have to turn my hand around or I don't have to touch the screen to tell the time? Is that important? I just glance at my watch like a watch.
Mhm.
Or is the battery life important? So when I need to make phone calls, when I need to do stuff on my watch, I'll have that battery life. So that is my hookup. If you are concerned about Apple Watch battery life and you need to stretch it, turn off always on display. You can do this via the Apple Watch app on your phone or your Apple Watch directly. And how you do it is you go to settings, then go to display and brightness, go to the always on and toggle always on to off. If you do that, of course, the drawback is when you turn your wrist up to look at your watch, you'll have to turn the crown or touch the screen or whatever the case may be. But the benefit is you'll get up to, I'm going to say up to 10 extra hours, which already the Apple Watch ain't no slouch when it comes to battery life. So to get that much battery life, people may be interested. So I just wanted to share.
Yeah.
All right. So that is,
watch.
Yep. So that's going to do it for the hookup. And that means that's going to do it for this week's show. Nica, tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To catch up with the show, like I mentioned, please go to snoboscast.com to get all of the details. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.